In a land where the majestic sun rises and greets the day with the welcoming smiles of Filipinos, the surrounding beauty of the Philippines can keep you in a trance. The people are very friendly, except for the routine pause for incoming texts on their cell phones. It is no surprise that this multilingual culture has been deemed the texting capital of the world. The quick fingers and dexterity to converse in multiple languages, it always boggles the mind how a Filipino with no prior training in the skills of text messaging can outpace any known human in the high-tech world of mobile communication. Not only did the Filipino reinvent the common English language to come up with an encrypted style monosyllabication of multiple syllable words, he also created smiley faces out of punctuation marks. Even the latest Apple iPhone was no match to the so-called Pinoy intelligenuity, Filipinos' intelligence and ingenuity. Officially, it was an American teenager who first broke into Apple iPhone and made it an open-line GSM phone. Unofficially, however, the dudes in Green Hills were already selling an open-line iPhone 1 week after Apple launched it. How does this relate to football? Logic states that dexterity of the fingers translates to dexterity of the feet. Secondly, it is inherent to all Filipinos to practice Pinoy intelligenuity. The bigger the impossibility, the better. Third, our ability to communicate in more than one language is a very unique communication skill. Agility, intelligence, ingenuity, and communication are very important factors in a team sport like football. Also, our love for dancing and the ability to sway from a controlled rhythm to an explosive combination of melody and dance make the tempo of playing football a natural for Filipinos. Historically, football in the Philippines had already achieved its peak in the 30s and early 40s. After the game was introduced by both the British sailors from Hong Kong in the 1900s as well as the Spaniards in Manila, foreigners have dictated the pace of the game. Although the British and Chinese presence is felt in Manila and other southern cities, the Spanish connection remains the sole influence that dominates. Football continued to pack the rafters, and at one time with 26,000 paying spectators. European sides often visited and played with local 11s like Turbo Salvaje, YCO Athletic Club, the Nomads, Casino Español, Shenghua Tigers, Lions, and school squads like the University of Santo Tomas and San Beda, who often played in floodlit fields. One very notable player is Paulino Alcantara, a former Filipino football player who spent most of his playing career at FC Barcelona. He also played for the Catalan 11, the Philippine national team, and the Spanish national team. Alcantara made his senior debut for FC Barcelona at the age of 15 and remains the youngest player ever to play or score for the club. He also scored a remarkable 357 goals in 357 matches, making him the club's all-time leading goal scorer. Alcantara is also the first Filipino and Asian player ever to play for a European club. Football has actually peaked in the Philippines several times, in the early 1900s to the 1940s, but this later died as the introduction of basketball and the success of the country's basketball team sparked basketball fever among most Filipinos after World War II. Though several attempts to resurrect football in the Philippines in the 1960s to the late 1970s did not prosper, the Philippine Football Federation continues to try to this very day to once again resurrect football and to once again mount football as a national sport for the country. The Southern Islands in the Philippines has produced batches upon batches of Filipino football players, earning it to the title Football Capital of the Philippines. Here, parents take pride in children who play the sport, especially those who have been recruited to the national team or drafted into the Army and Air Force teams. For many, excelling in the sport means free tuition in college and a chance to be in the national limelight. These areas of the country are also the main source of collegiate players of the University Athletic Association of the Philippines. While the passion for the sport may defy limitations, we now hope that this enthusiasm may be matched by support from the private sector. This is a common sentiment all over the Philippine Islands. Football is part of our lives. Our desire is to maximize the potential of the sport and infuse it into our culture and way of life. Football, like any other professional sports, is a business. The business aspect of the sport needs the infusion of professionalism and proper business practices and ethics. The guiding principle must be centered in creating opportunities and inclusion of all social classes in the growth of football. FIFA has created a structure for success in football. All we need to do is participate and be part of its growth. Compared to other Southeast Asian countries, others might surmise that our history and success is reflected only in world rankings. This is far from true. None of our Southeast Asian neighbors can lay claim to be one of the first members of FIFA, a founding member of the Asian Football Confederation, which was held in Manila in 1958, as well as the ASEAN Football Federation. The Philippines paved the road for other Asian countries to follow, although political and cultural challenges diverted our early successes in football. We have proven that we can be successful. What we need in football as a profession is to create opportunities for the Filipino to use football as a means of creating a better life or a way out of poverty. We would like to believe that it was our graciousness and consideration that allowed the growth of football in the Asian region. We are here for the greater good of the sport. Now is the time to participate and again be the maverick in football. Many of us have always maintained that if half of our basketball players focused on football, we would have been a top team in Asia and would have a chance to qualify for the World Cup. It is ironic that our early basketball greats were football players to begin with. As our local football aficionados would love to say, a football player can always play basketball and almost any other sport, but the inverse is not always applicable.